And hello, high school Democrats. Welcome back to another interview. And today we have a very special interview on the plate. We're here with Councilwoman Virginia Korte, who is running for Scottsdale Mayor. Thank you so much for being here with us, Councilwoman.
Hey, I'm honored to be here. I appreciate the invite.
Thank you. So I'll hand the first question to Lauren.
Yeah, so it's such a pleasure to be speaking with you today.
Hi, Laura.
Hi. So my first question is, as mayor, you will have new responsibilities, but also many of the same responsibilities from your time on city council. What actions will you take to lead Scottsdale fiscally?
So as we all know, we are in unknown territory with this current pandemic and COVID, the associated recession, which could very well go into depression depending on the length of time that we are dealing with this pandemic. I believe that, first of all, to lead us out and be fiscally responsible and create a resilient community that Scottsdale has always been resilient, and we need to continue that, is to better partner with our schools. Our public schools, whether it's Scottsdale Unified School District or Paradise Valley School District, Unified School District, or even Cave Creek Unified School District, those three districts intersect with the boundaries of Scottsdale. And we know that the importance of schools is critical to a thriving and healthy community. And employees, people that are looking for jobs and are looking to move to a new community, they will look at their schools and what kind of schools are in that community before they do anything else. It really determines not only the workforce and the talent that moves into your community, but also the types of jobs that come in and the types of and the corporations. So that's number one. We need to better partner with our school systems and shall we say, embrace the value of education. Second, then, of course, is navigating the COVID. And while we don't know what that's going to be, every day is a new day, as we know. It's important then to look at ways to diversify our economy, and we need to start now. We are very much of a tourism community. I embrace that. It brings all the amenities and all the special things of Scottsdale to us because of our tourism and our tax base. But we also need to diversify our economy so that we're not so vulnerable to the ups and downs of tourism. And we do that by attracting and retaining good companies that provide well-paying jobs. And we do it by planning for and building Class A office space. So those are the two things that I would start with, besides just navigating.
Yeah, definitely. And like first, when you were talking about education, just as students, we really appreciate you standing up for us and wanting us to have the best education possible, especially as Arizona is like 49th or 48th in the country for education. So that really does mean a lot, just because we are the next generation of people who will be leading the United States and Arizona and Scottsdale. And also when you were talking about COVID, I think you brought up a really great point, how Scottsdale is especially vulnerable, as especially like this year, like spring training didn't really happen, and that time of year is when a lot of tourists come, and how like Scottsdale makes a lot of its money. So bringing in those jobs to make it so the city isn't as vulnerable is really great idea, just to bring Scottsdale to a really great place where it can thrive. Mm-hmm. So thank you so much for that. And I will hand it over to Isabelle now.
Just one more point, Laura, for your audience. I think it's important to know that I either chaired or co-chaired or honorary chair 4 separate Yes to Children campaigns to support overrides for SUSD. And that's over many years of supporting SUSD and making sure that that school district has the resources to educate our kids.
Thank you so much for that, just because all the school districts in like Arizona and Scottsdale, like we need as many resources as we can possibly get so we can all get the best education possible, and so teachers are able to teach us. So thank you so much.
Yes.
And now I'll hand it over to Isabelle for the next question.
Sorry, Isabelle.
Oh no, you're totally good. Don't worry. So you touched on it a little bit already, but as I'm sure you know, COVID-19 has hurt a lot of different communities across Arizona, and it's currently at its worst. So as mayor, how do you plan on addressing the pandemic, and how do you want to help Scottsdale grow strong?
And that's another very difficult question to answer. But first, I'd like to talk about how disappointed I am that this pandemic has become such a partisan issue. I am flummoxed by Republicans and ultra-conservatives believing that this pandemic is some type of conspiracy, and that masks really don't do anything but harm the person that's wearing it. I'm very disappointed in that. But having said that, I think to navigate through this pandemic, we really need to expand our testing. Without that data, we don't know, we don't have the information to make the educated decisions. So as mayor, I would put resources into providing multiple testing sites that are free or subsidized cost, so that our citizens have access and don't have to wait for 5 hours to get a COVID test. I think that's number one, because the sooner we get a handle on this pandemic, then the sooner we're going to be able to open up our economy. I want to do everything possible to keep our businesses open, keep the jobs there, and create one of the healthiest places to visit. That's all I have.
Yeah, no, that's certainly a great answer. I definitely agree. I mean, getting testing out there is key. And while the numbers might not be pretty, they're so necessary to get support to our hospital system and get all the hospital workers the support that they really need. So I totally agree with everything you said. I think Daniel has the next question for you.
Hi, Daniel.
Hi. So if you're elected, you would be the first openly LGBTQ mayor in Scottsdale and only the second ever in Arizona. So I'm a proud member of the LGBTQ community myself, and I really do admire and thank you for your courage in refusing to apologize for who you are. But you know, sadly, it seems like Arizona is not, in Scottsdale as well at times, is not really at the same level when it comes to equality for LGBTQ people. When it compared to other states, like it wasn't legalized here until 2001. Same-sex marriage was banned in 2008 by a vote of the voters. And in 2014, our state was finally forced to accept same-sex marriage. So even afterwards, it wasn't even until like last month when the Supreme Court ruled to end private employment discrimination against LGBTQ people. And so we've taken some actions in the past during your time on council to protect and support our LGBTQ people, but it still seems like those protections fall behind other cities in Arizona. So all that being said, as mayor, what will you do to ensure that there are equal rights, protections, and opportunities for people like us in Scottsdale?
Well, as you know, I love this question because I've been working since 2015 to have Scottsdale adopt a non-discrimination ordinance for the LGBTQ. Failed miserably in 2015. It was a 5-2 vote. Two of us supported moving forward with an ordinance, and 5 did not. And it was clear that of those 5, one's a homophobic, another is in denial that discrimination just doesn't exist in Scottsdale, and the third, another person believed that it was going to be harmful for business. You know, all of those are just plain wrong. Applaud the Supreme Court, the U.S. Supreme Court, for acknowledging that LGBTQ are discriminated in the job, in jobs and in employment, and the fact that they have now created that level of equality for LGBTQ in the workplace. So hats off to him. And that was an incredible decision. It was 6-3, and it was just, it was a great decision. But it did fall short. And we know that it fell short in that it only protects LGBTQ in the workplace. There are 3 other factors of a non-discrimination ordinance that still needs to be accomplished. And that's discrimination in, come on, Virginia, discrimination in public spaces, and discrimination in, gosh, I'm just running a blank here, Daniel. You should be able to help me here. So it's public spaces, and housing. So we know that people are turned down. LGBTQ people, couples are turned down from renting apartments because of who they are. That's just not right. And in Scottsdale, if we really believe, and if we want to espouse that we are one of the most livable cities in the United States, then let's walk our talk and move forward to not only ratify the Supreme Court's decision in employment, but also in public spaces and housing. I also have been a longtime advocate for a statewide non-discrimination ordinance and worked with other mayors. Tempe Mayor, Mayor Giles is totally in support of a statewide non-discrimination ordinance. We worked together to create a resolution for the League of Arizona Cities and Towns. And so that was one of the League's legislative items that they worked on 2 years ago. It didn't see the light of day, and know that a statewide non-discrimination ordinance has been introduced to the state legislature for 13 times now, and it's never seen the light of day, except for Kate Brophy-McGee and Heather Carter managed to have a hearing for a non-discrimination ordinance. It was a hearing only, and so we're hoping just small steps that perhaps this coming year, if the legislature meets, because the pandemic has settled down, that we will be able to make some additional steps on that. Certainly the Supreme Court decision is going to make a difference, but Scottsdale needs one, but the state needs one too.
I'm like almost about to tear up. It just means so much to me that there's somebody that's fighting for people like me in such a more traditional community when it comes to social beliefs like Scottsdale and Arizona as a whole. So thank you so much. And before I'm tear up, I'm gonna hand it over to Lauren for the next question.
I also want to say thank you. That's really amazing, all of the work that you're doing to stand up for people who are LGBTQ. That's really amazing and important work that I can't believe hasn't been done yet.
It's really hard to believe. I guess it's just denial in our society.
Yeah.
It's that unintended bias or that systemic discrimination that we're finally starting to talk about because of Black Lives Matter.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And so you kind of mentioned the partisan divide in your answer to Isabel's question. So I'm gonna backtrack to that. So right now, the partisan divide in our country grows larger every day. Political beliefs are on a spectrum, but people are mostly being forced into 2 opposing camps at the moment. As mayor, what will you do to make sure that all beliefs have a seat at the table and that we move forward as one united Scottsdale?
You guys must have really thought about these questions because they're tough questions. But this one is, I think, imperative to our community if we're going to move forward and create a dynamic, resilient Scottsdale that I think all of us want. We just have differing views, and sometimes it's geographic differences, and sometimes it's demographic differences. But there seems to be a real divide between growth and no growth. right? No more apartment buildings, please, or no to high rise. We want our sunsets and to see the mountains. It's really important to make the attempt to bring our community together. Now we are updating our general plan this coming year, and we're going to have a lot of citizen input to that. But updating our general plan is not it's an aspiration for our city, but it's not the vision. And you know, in our city, Scottsdale was built on citizen input and citizen visioning. And I'm going to go back to the 1960s. In the 1960s, the city invited hundreds of people to be involved in the STEP program, Scottsdale Town Enrichment Program. And this group of people were committed, and they met for like 2 years and talked about what Scottsdale is, and what do we want Scottsdale to be, and how do we get there? So out of that town enrichment program came things like banning billboards. You know, Scottsdale has 1 billboard left. It's grandfathered. And, you know, that makes a difference in our community. Also what came out of it was the Greenbelt, the Indian Bend Greenbelt. That was almost a concrete ditch thanks to the BOR, the federal government. But instead, we created a linear park that is just incredible. What an amenity that is. So the 60s, and then the 70s and the 80s and 90s, every one of those decades, we had a citizen visioning process where hundreds of people came together. It wasn't a one-off, 1 day, 2 day, 2.5 day. It was a process that lasted for at least a year in each one of those cases, where those individuals, you know, you start building the base, and you build the history and the facts so everyone's on the same page. And then you start talking about what do you as citizens of Scottsdale want Scottsdale to be? And so I'm calling that Scottsdale Conversations 2050, because I think it's important to look out 30 years. You know, you guys are going to be you'll be in your 40s in 50 years, you know, late 40s maybe. And you're going to be the leaders of this community. And so remember that it just takes a conversation, because conversations create change. And let's don't forget that. Yeah.
Yeah, that was really amazing. And I appreciated how you went into different examples from the past, and also looking into the future of how we can all work together, just because we all really appreciate and want the two parties to work together, because we can't get anything done if we all just have opposing views. And we, especially in different cities and smaller governments, we need to work together to get things done, to bring Scottsdale and just Arizona and the United States in general in the right direction. We want to thank you for being a part of that.
Well, thank you. I want to add one more thing. So the visioning 2020, I think it was 2020 or 2021, back in the 90s, came up, excuse me, it was in the 80s, came up with the 6 themes or values. And one of those values was valuing the environment and open space in our Sonoran Desert. And that was really the beginning of the whole effort to preserve and create the McDowell Sonoran Preserve. And so it really came out of a visioning process. So we can only imagine what could come out of a Scottsdale Conversations 2050 to move us into the future and meet the needs of your generation, not mine, but yours.
That's really, really inspiring, just how you're all looking so far ahead into the future, just not for yourselves, but for others, and to make Scottsdale the best place that it possibly can, so we can raise future generations in this city and hopefully attract other people to raise their children in this city.
That's right. And that you will be able to thrive, because you'll be able to find a good, well-paid job and live close to your family and not have to move to Austin or Denver or
other 100%.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I'm going to turn it over to Isabel now for more of a fun question now that we've gone through all of our big policy questions.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I know we've kind of been giving you a lot of very informative policy questions, but don't worry, this one's easier. So, what is something outside of politics that you love that your voters might not know about?
Well, most people don't know that I have a master's in biology. I was a college professor at Mesa and also Scottsdale Community College. I love the outdoors. I used to backpack, and when I got a little old for that, then I got horses, and then I packed horses for days into the wilderness of Superstitions or Colorado. And also that my love of outdoors is what caused me to be so involved with creating our McDowell Sonoran Preserve. Our 30,600 acres is, it really is a miracle that we were able to accomplish preserving that amount of space and that amount of land. It represents 27% of our land mass in Scottsdale, which is the biggest urban preserve in the country, which is pretty cool. I love the outdoors, and I love natural history, identifying birds and butterflies and larvae and all that kind of stuff. And I also love gardening, particularly desert adapted plants and cacti and succulents. And I'm always looking for great specimens of cacti and got my own propagation yard. I've got my own potting shed. You know, it's pretty neat. So yeah, it's the outdoors. I just love nature. And dogs.
And I can tell you're definitely a very dedicated public servant at heart when your personal interests, like being in the outdoors, have really helped you just legislate and make our state and even just Scottsdale itself just a great place to live with a great quality of life. So that's awesome. And I think I'm going to turn it over to Daniel just to wrap everything up.
Sorry, I was responding to a text message I had to answer. Yeah, I mean, something that I've really been able to take away from this interview is that, like on one of our questions, there are a lot of big divides in Scottsdale, like between both the people who want to move development forward and the people who want us to be, stay the same as we have been. And I think something that's really inspiring about you is that you listen to everyone and that you're going to do what you think is best for Scottsdale according to the people and not for the special interests of whoever wants what. So thank you for that. And
Thank
for
you.
our final question, are there any last thoughts you want to share with our voters?
Since I was talking about the love of outdoors, I am proposing a new program, and it's not a new program in that it's a new idea. Tempe has adopted an urban forest program. Phoenix has an urban forest program. Scottsdale used to be the leading edge of environmental issues back in the 70s and the 80s, and we're not anymore. We need to reinvest in our environmental department and start an urban forest program where it's based on science. And if a community plants enough trees to create at least a 25% shade canopy in their community, they can significantly reduce their ambient air temperature and also increase their air quality, because trees aren't just for climbing. They absorb carbon dioxide, clean the air, absorb pollutants in the ground, things of that nature. And trees are pretty special. They create gathering places for neighborhoods and create a sense of place for bicycle paths and pedestrian paths. Can you imagine what our old town would look like if we had a 25% canopy of trees? It would attract so many more people just to hang out there and be in a coffee shop or sitting outside and having a beer. I mean, you guys can't have the beer. I can have the beer. You can have the coffee. So urban forest program, I think it's something that we've got to do. So that's my last final thought to share.
I mean, that sounds beautiful. Like Old Town is already pretty unique as it is. It's very old Western, but like an old Western coupled with that like outdoor kind of vibe, not just a place you go to shop, but a place you can go to like hang out would be so cool for Scottsdale.
Mhm.
So yeah, thank you so much for joining us. Scottsdale voters, you know, we're happy to give our full endorsement to Virginia Korte for this position because there's a lot of candidates in the field, but we just don't think that every candidate is going to listen to everybody in this conversation. So thank you so much for being a true representative of the people and being with us today.
Well, and I just want to pass my gratitude on to you and Laura and Isabelle for taking time and understanding the value of what you're doing to a community, what you guys are doing and building, and the impact of that on our community. It's really special. So thank you for that. Yeah.
Thank
Thank you.
you.